On 26th April 2018, Kiharu, Murang'a County witnessed a state funeral, only lacking a 21-gun salute. But everyone came. President Uhuru Kenyatta, Deputy President William Ruto, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, foreign envoys, religious leaders and the villagers too. They all attended the funeral of Kenneth Stanley Njindo Matiba. The following day, the body of Kenneth Matiba was cremated at the Lang'ata Cemetery. But the dignified send-off was a clear recognition of the political weight of Matiba, a man many acknowledged as phenomenal.
After Jaramogi, I would say of the others who have run for the office of the president, Kenneth Matiba was the best president that we never had.
In the 1980s and the 90s, President Daniel Arap Moi ruled the roast, and he did so with a heavy hand.
Naapa kwamba nitakuwa mwaminifu kwa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Political assassinations and detention without trial were commonplace. A minister, Robert Ouko, was killed and dumped in a hillside thicket. An outspoken clergyman, Alexander Muge, was killed in a suspicious road accident. But then the Berlin Wall was coming down, and with it, international pressure on African strongmen to open up democratic space. And the flame was lit right under Moi's regime, with the number of critics swelling by the day. Agitators for multipartyism multiplied, and they included Moi's own former minister, Kenneth Matiba.
We were convinced that the dictatorship environment we had in Kenya was because of the Katiba. The constitution allowed it. And people also, our own citizens, created dictators by almost calling them gods or not.
That is the time at which I met Matiba. I was very impressed because remember I was also editing the Nairobi Law Monthly at that time. I was very, very impressed. So when Matiba and Rubia signed that famous letter asking for a license to hold a meeting at Kamukunji, there was a lot of excitement. We were ready to challenge the government because we had seen dictatorships collapse in the Soviet Union. We had a history of heroic resistance which had been repressed by the one-party dictatorship. We felt that we shouldn't miss the opportunity provided by the wind of change. So the call itself galvanized those of us who really were looking for an opportunity to challenge the one-party dictatorship.
The movement took shape through street protests and unlicensed gatherings which attracted many followers.
And there were many people involved, lawyers, engineers, church people of all denominations, and politicians.
The first major flashpoint will be the famous Sabasaba rally, which was slated for the 7th of July 1990. The government immediately outlawed it.
The moment Matiba announced that the meeting at Kamukunji will go on with or without a license, we became marked and they started following us.
In my offices, you know, because I used to I used to have a legal practice. I'll be working and a policeman is standing in my office or sitting at the door, you know, grabbed a chair and sat at the door. Not talking, just telling you continue with your work. And they stood there watching every little movement that one was making. So it was not an easy time.
Then the crackdown began On July 4th, 1990, Matiba and Rubia, among others, were arrested.
I was arrested on the 4th, I think the same day that Matiba was arrested. I had gone to State House Primary School to pick my children, and I noticed the cars that were following. There was, standard 1, I think, and 2. And I remember me telling them I jotted down the number plates of the cars that was following me. And I was living in Gomo Estate. I told them that mark those cars, and if we don't get home, whoever it is, just give them the details of the car, because I was sure I was going to be arrested. So I drove with these people following me to Gomo Estate. They surrounded the estate. It was not my first arrest. It must have been the 10th, 15th. So I had this sweater always at the ready, just in case they come. So I wore it, and I opened the door, and when they saw me, of course, they were very hungry. So they threw me into the back of a Peugeot 504, and as I drove off, they stopped on the road and really beat me up. They were very angry because I had kept them, I had hidden, and I'd got all this media, that had recorded my arrest. So they really beat me up, and then took me to Nairobi area, traffic headquarters. I never knew there were cells there. But below there are cells, and that's when I learned that Matiba had been there.
I understood I was at committee, that I knew I was at committee prison, but I did not know where Matiba was. We were kept ignorant. And it's what they call, you are excommunicated completely, you are in darkness. You don't even know what day it is. What called solitary confinement is very dangerous, punishing you mentally. You even lose time.
Life in detention was dark, that only the desire to keep fighting kept many alive.
But around midnight, I would say between midnight and 1 a.m., I was put in a Volkswagen Kombi, a blue one. They opened, and then you are told to lie, behind the driver, along in the middle, but on the floor. And of course, they would go stepping and singing, and taunting you. And the ones who carried me was singing this song, Kanyaga Inchi, really by the time they did the rounds, I didn't know which rounds. I had almost passed out, and I was bleeding. But eventually we stopped. Of course, at that time I was blindfolded, and I was completely prepared for death, because I couldn't see another possibility of the kind of beatings you received, including on the head. I thought they were definitely not going to release me. So I came to terms, and I started thinking about death, and I thought about death many times during that time, because I'd been in prison for more than 2 years before, and I'd read books on how to prepare for detention.
Tumejumuika, tuko watu wa kutosha, tutaenda Uhuru Park sasa vile ilitangazwa.
We decided that we had to go Kamkunji. First of all, to give people courage, because at that time, to appear in a rally which had been declared illegal, and with that kind of security detail mounted to ensure that people don't take part in the meeting, we were sure, that, a lot of leaders will not turn up, or many people will not turn up. But yet, out there, people were clamoring they'd come out. Tear gas was being thrown and hurled everywhere. So we said, we cannot let the people down. And we said, okay, well, let's get into this pickup. And as we went, because we know the grounds at the Kamkunji had been occupied by the police. So as we went through the Kaloleni, Bama, Majengo, California area, we said, we must see the people, show the people that we had actually gotten into the area, if not to Kamkunji itself. But all of us knew we were going to be arrested. We were sure we were going to end up in a prison or a police cell.
Many people died. Prisons had new inmates. The court had new clans to be tried and jailed hastily by willing judges. Foreign missions had new applications from asylum seekers keen to escape and live to fight another day.
We had the chaos were killed later in Paris, in prison. Because again, human being what he is, even warders would whisper to us, leo ilikuwa mbaya huko nje. We had also some warders who would sneak up information. But the campaign went on even while we were in, and there was so much noise to release us.
I don't think President Moi did anything outside the law in terms of arrests and detentions. Because there was a provision in the law that a person shall be detained by the president. It was in the law. He found it in the law from independence.
The rally never happened, but Kenya changed. Sabasaba came to be the symbol of defiance against the KANU regime, and that triggered the multi-party debate. The flame of liberation was lit, and Moi and KANU realized that change was inevitable.
Moi called a conference at KICC. He called it KANU National Conference to decide on the constitution. Right? And he had a field day. So he allowed them to speak. A very clever man. He allowed people to ventilate. What do you think? Should we change? Or should we not change? He allowed them to ventilate. So he listened to everybody. He now said, I have heard you. I now also want to make my own statement.
A day before the day, Franklin Bate, then Moi's most trusted Deputy State House Controller, was given a delicate duty to perform. He was asked to prepare 2 speeches, one outlining the importance of retaining Section 2A in the Constitution, and another calling for its immediate repeal to allow multi-party politics. It was a secret that only Bate and President Moi knew.
Then he told me, because I was sitting behind there, he told me, give me my speech. Then I told him, you have got 2. Said, the one which he's saying, we repeal 2A. He read his speech, the first pages. When he now reached that one, he now said, mimi, yale ambao ninayaona mbele, ni kali kuliko tunayoona hapa. So lazima tujiokoe kwa yale ambayo yanatukujia. Lazima tujiweke kwa njia ambayo haitadhuru watoto wetu na haitaharibu uhusiano wetu na marafiki zetu za ulimwengu.
The first real opposition party, Forum for Restoration of Democracy Forward, was riding high on the wave of change. Then President Moi's once trusted friends started to desert him. They went one by one, but it was the resignation of then Health Cabinet Minister Mwai Kibaki that shocked many. He was to be joined by a host of powerful politicians, mainly from Central Kenya region, to form the Democratic Party, DP. He was to become a formidable opponent to KANU. But it was Ford which was to pose the real challenge. It attracted hundreds and thousands of supporters, and for a while it looked set to seize power from Moi and KANU. At this time, KANU was facing defeat. A poll by the late Professor Wangari Maathai had showed that Jaramogi Oginga was the man most likely to beat Moi in the 1992 presidential contest.
According to the poll that Wangari Maathai was taking at that time, and according to her, Jaramogi Oginga was the most favored person to be the president of the Republic of Kenya.
But that was long before the disintegration. Apart from DP eating into its support base, Ford, the once indomitable party, split into 2.
Kenyan, very sad, tragic story of our ethnicity began. And it began with us in the Young Turks movement, because you remember after the elections, after the breakup of the two forts, with Fort Kenya, Fort Asili, Jaramogi leading Fort Kenya, we had that historic meeting at City Stadium, where Paul Mwite became the first vice chairman, and Wamolo Kijana the second vice chairman. I became the secretary general, and that was the beginning of the, of the divisions, because there was among our group who felt that because of the advanced age of Jaramogi, if he didn't make it to the presidency because of age, then the seat would again fall to Kikuyu, and they were not prepared for that. They will say all sorts of things, but that was the truth. They fought very hard to ensure that Jaramogi would not be succeeded by Kikuyu in Fort Kenya. So they engineered the removal for Paul Mwite, my own removal, because at that time Raila was supporting Munywa Waiyaki to become Secretary General, because he had a longer history of relationship with the family. And that was the beginning, actually. The breakup began on the very first day. And there was a feeling that because Fort Asili is led by a Kikuyu, we shouldn't allow a possibility where the other fort is also led by a Kikuyu. And that was the beginning of the end of the two forts, unfortunately. And Moi saw it. Moi saw it, and he exploited it to the maximum.
Kenneth Matiba is out in London for some medical treatment. And he's coming back. And the man who is leading Ford is Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Jaramogi Odinga is slightly older than Kenneth Matiba. So you put into the head of Kenneth Matiba that it is time for Jaramogi Oginga Odinga to go where? Go home. So when he's coming, I'm younger and he's old and he has had his time. He needs to go away. So that's what was done. Kenneth Matiba was given that impression just by some statements.
And secondly, they told him that, if he did not take his chance, then Mwai Kibaki was going to eclipse him. Matiba was taken in, but not absolutely, until the day when he came back.
I have absolutely no hesitation in saying that the day Mwai Kibaki formed the Democratic Party is a day that any democratic transition resulting in the leadership of any of us who was in that early stage of second liberation was taken away. Because I remember very well, we had gone with Paul Mwite to London to talk to Matiba, who was then recovering. And after great persuasion, Matiba had actually agreed to stand down for Jaramogi. And then out of the blue came this announcement from somebody Matiba called General Kegoya, announcing the formation of DP. And this got Matiba so annoyed. He said, if Kibaki is standing, I am going to run for president. And it was single-minded.
And then when he came, he had a very good reception at the airport, our president. The first thing he did when he now landed in Ford was a big quarrel with Jaramogi Odinga.
And that was the end of it.
Because it was entered into him that you are also able to be the president. It was done deliberately by some people away, Ford. So he got into it. He got into the trap. And that trap caused a split in Ford. Then you ended up having Ford Kenya, and then you now ended up having Ford Asili. Now Ford Kenya says, we are the first one, so we are the ones who are known in Kenya. So they call themselves Ford Kenya. Matiba said, I'm Asili. I think he was financing Ford all the time from the beginning. So he said, Mimi ni Asili. So he said, Ford Asili. Not long from there, then we got Ford people.
Na asante salimia jamii yako.
And so Moi won the 1992 elections against a divided opposition.
We were never able to reach the threshold. The only one who was getting the threshold was Kanu. Although it was a very low, it was a dismal threshold. But there he was. There was no law that was denying a person of that threshold at that time, unlike now. So even
Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Kenneth Matiba died, not having fulfilled their presidential ambitions. If there were no divisions, what would have happened?
No, I think if there were no divisions, I think we would have had Jaramogi as president, and we would have had Masindo Muliro as deputy or vice president. And I think in that government, Matiba would have played a very crucial role, and a role which would have ended up, with an amendment of the Constitution, with an enhancement of that position that, absent his health problems, he would have, between him and Muliro, risen to power or share power after Jaramogi Oginga Odinga presidency.
Then Jaramogi would have been the president of Kenya, my own view.